All right, guys, we're going to go into this Aaron Mate story really quick. Smash the like. If you're new, don't forget to like, sub, and share. If you already did so, thank you for hitting that like button, hun. And we're moving on to Aaron Mate goes off. Piers Morgan decided to have another panel with people yelling and screaming all over each other. But Aaron Mate was able to get some golden nuggets in that I think you guys should hear. And more importantly, what's great about this conversation is at the end of the discussion, the question is asked, how do you move forward in the Middle East? What is to be done? And I think that Aaron had the perfect answer to that. And oftentimes they're not talking about solutions on these debates that Piers Morgan has, but this time they do. And I think people need to hear it. So we're going to get started with this part here. Who started this war? And I think this is where things really start to get a little bit heated in this discussion. So let's go ahead and dive in here. Who started this war?
We are nearly a year into this war in Gaza. It now looks increasingly likely there might be another phase of this war erupting, or already has erupted, in Lebanon. The question I have wrestled with since October the 7th is not whether Israel has a right to defend itself if it's attacked, but what is the proportionate response which should be tolerated of a nation that comes under that attack. And that's setting aside the history of the conflict. When you are attacked as they were on October the 7th, you obviously have to fight back hard, particularly as Hamas said, we're going to keep doing this. If Hezbollah wants to respond to what happened on October the 7th by within hours, unleashing rockets at Israel and carrying on doing that for the next year, again, Israel has a right to defend itself. The question is, what is proportionate? Do you accept, first of all, Aaron, that Israel has a right, if not a duty, to its people to defend itself? And if you accept that, then what is proportionate? Who determines that?
Let me pause here because there was something I noticed right off the bat, right? Piers Morgan said Israel has a right to defend itself 3 times in that little statement he just gave. 3 times already. So don't get it twisted. When Piers Morgan has these debates, it's very clear he's on the side of Israel. We already know, we went over, like, you know, Rupert Murdoch was his mentor. We went over all of that. Rupert Murdoch is a big Zionist. He also owns Fox News. He's a billionaire. So Piers Morgan makes a point to mention that not once, not twice, but 3 times in the short moment that he just spoke. Think about that for a second.
Every state, including Israel, has the right to defend itself, but let's examine what that right entails. If we're talking about October 7th, when, yes, some Hamas militants committed atrocities, they're on camera. There was a claim before, by the way, that there was rape by Hamas. There actually isn't evidence for a single case of rape, even 1 year later. And I'm happy to debate that.
I'm sorry. I've got to stop.
Hold on a second.
I have to correct you.
See, they have to interrupt here because, oh, God forbid someone said there was no evidence. And this is true. There's no evidence. None. But there is evidence that Palestinian detainees at the Palestinian detention center have been sexually assaulted by IDF soldiers on video camera. And you never hear Piers Morgan bring that up. You won't hear these women here in the middle bring this up. You won't hear them mention that. Ask yourself why.
I have seen
my point.
There has been widespread evidence of rape and sexual abuse against women on October the 7th.
There hasn't. There actually hasn't. We'll debate that some other time. We'll debate that some other time. I'm going to finish my point. There is not a single shred of evidence for it, but we'll debate some other time. Listen. We're talking about October 7th. Israel has the right on October 7th to defend its people. Let me finish my... Piers, every time I come on here, I can't talk.
Okay,
let me
look,
talk.
to be fair, Aaron,
I didn't interrupt you.
Aaron, okay.
You can talk.
I didn't interrupt anybody.
Aaron, look, what I would say, you say every time you come on here this happens, but you just started with an unbelievably inflammatory and incorrect statement, which is that there was no sexual abuse of women on October the 7th.
There's no...
But there have been moments and several times where the Israeli panelists that have come onto the show have started off with inflammatory statements, and not once do you interrupt them. Not once does Piers Morgan interrupt them. And I hope people are paying attention to that, because again, like I said, it shows you what side Piers is on. If Piers Morgan wants to make it so that there aren't those constant interruptions, he can mute the people who are interrupting the same way that I do when I host panels on this show. When I hosted the Black voter panel, when we do that a couple times, we should be doing that again in October. When people start interrupting, it gets to the point where you can't hear the person that's talking, I will mute people. They can do the same thing. They don't mute them because they want the people to interrupt what they're saying, because they're criticizing Israel and they're debunking Israel's lies. And that is why they want them to do that. So people got to understand, he can mute them if he wanted to. He wants them to interrupt.
There are multiple.
We'll debate that some other time.
Sexual
it's
abuse
a fact.
and rape.
No. Okay. There's not. Anyway, listen. If we're talking about October 7th, I'm going to finish my sentence.
Let him speak, please.
Okay. I didn't interrupt you. They said multiple inflammatory things. I didn't interrupt them. Thank you.
All right. Finish your point.
If we're talking about on October 7th, yes.
Let him speak, Elika, please.
Thank you. If we're talking about on October 7th, yes, Israel has the right to defend its civilians if they're being attacked. Okay, but Israel is an occupying power, and it's been an occupying power for decades. Occupiers don't have the right to defend their occupation. Israel doesn't have the right to fire a single bullet into Gaza. It has obligations. Occupiers have obligations. And if Israel wanted peace and security, what it would do is join the entire world, join the International Court of Justice, which just ruled that Israel doesn't have the right to control a single inch of the West Bank or Gaza, and end the occupation and address its decades-long attacks on Palestinians and also Lebanese, because, as was previously said, Israel invaded Lebanon in 1982, killed tens of thousands of people, and that's why Hezbollah was formed. If Israel wanted genuine peace and security, and it wanted to defend itself, it would stop brutalizing other people. And this claim was made before. What was Israel supposed to do in response to its people being kidnapped? That's the logic of October 7th, because there are thousands of Palestinians who have been brutalized and kidnapped in Israeli dungeons. Hamas launched October 7th to free them. The difference between Israel and Hamas is that Hamas actually has an argument, because Hamas has tried I didn't interrupt you. I did not interrupt you, please.
I wasn't lying.
Hamas has tried to accept you were actually. Hamas has tried to accept the global consensus of a two-state solution, a big compromise for Palestinians, accepting just 22% of their homeland in the West Bank and Gaza. Israel's refused to join the rest of the world in accepting that two-state solution. Even Iran has voiced at times support for that. It's only Israel and the U.S. that insist on Israel's right to put Gaza under siege and steal Palestinian land in the West Bank. And that's why you have this continued escalation. Hezbollah intervened on October 8th because they wanted to show Israel that there would be costs for committing mass murder, which is what Israel has done. And that's why Hezbollah was involved. Hezbollah said from the start it would stop its rockets if Israel stopped committing mass murder. Israel, unfortunately, is more committed to mass murder because it insists on the right to control that entire land and not accept Palestinians as equal human beings. That's the fundamental problem here.
Okay.
And to add something to that, because this is the part that I think, again, they get really upset when you say the occupation. They get really angry about that. Because the reality is this: if it is true that Israel wants peace, they wouldn't occupy those people to begin with. If it's true that they want peace, they wouldn't oppress those people. You see, now they don't want to go back on this now, because the reality is like, if they say in the occupation, they're afraid to end the occupation because they know all those years that you've oppressed those people, all those years that you could just cut off their lights, their water, their resources whenever you feel like it. You know, those people have built up felt some type of way against you, and you can't blame them for that. And the reality is, though, Israel is the entity that is in power. They control the land, the air, and the sea. It is an occupying apartheid state. And they hate it when you say that, but it's a reality. If they wanted peace, they wouldn't occupy people. If they wanted peace, they wouldn't oppress people. If they wanted peace, they wouldn't be blowing people up. It's just obvious as day. So the reality is they don't want peace. They want to occupy the entire region. They want southern Lebanon. They want the West Bank. They want Gaza. They want all of it. They do not want any Arab people there, period. And before people come to me and say, there's Palestinian Christians that live in Israel. Yeah. And people have interviewed them as well. They're not treated well either. Don't think that just because there are those who are Palestinian Christians that live in Israel and that are not in Gaza, don't think that they're treated the same as the Israelis there, because they're not. This is a fundamental issue. They want control. They want the land. They don't want Arabs there. And it's not even just about Arabs. There was an article from The Guardian a couple of years ago that discussed how they were sterilizing Ethiopian women against their will so they wouldn't have any babies because they didn't want more Ethiopian Jews. It's a hot mess.
Fleur, Hassan, Nahum, I mean,
I don't know where to start. I really don't know where to start. First of all, he's talking about mass murder on October 8th. We were attacked on October 7th. We hadn't even gone in on October 8th. So I really don't understand what you're talking about. Secondly, he completely
You were waging the longest military occupation in the world.
Yes. Well, let's go to that. In 2005, Israel left the Gaza Strip. Now, at that point, the Gazans could have done one of two things: turn it into a wonderful pilot for a Palestinian state, which you think they want, and I don't believe they actually do. And instead, they turned it into Mogadishu, into Beirut, as it were. Instead of investing in its people, they invested in tunnels to attack and to use their people as human shields. That's just a fact. Tell me, why did they not build a beautiful place in 2005 until today? You know why? Because Hamas came into power, and Hamas is not interested in a state. Hamas is interested in destroying the Jewish state, and that is the crux of the conflict. And you're on the wrong side of history. One day you're going to wake up and realize this. At the bottom line is that the conflict is not because there isn't a Palestinian state. The conflict is because there's a Jewish state that has never been accepted. And that's why in 1947, they didn't accept the partition plan. And that is why after Oslo in 2000, they didn't accept the two-state solution. We gave them 93% of the West Bank and the entire Gaza.
Listen to the way that she's speaking. We gave them, first of all, two things. Number one, no one has to accept an occupier and an oppressor. That's just like, would you have said to the slaves in the United States? Would you have said you didn't accept your master? Oh my God, the slaves, they want to be free. They don't want to accept their master. Get out of here. Two, when you are occupying a group of people and you decide to give them money, because let's remember, they gave money to Hamas. When you decide to give money to a group of people that you are occupying, you do not have the right to tell them how to spend it. So if they wanted to take that money and they wanted to build tunnels, if they wanted to build buildings, if they wanted to just build a damn giant ass circus, they can do what they want with that money because you are occupying them. Like the words that I hear, we offered to give them this and that. You shouldn't have took it. How you take somebody's land, you take somebody's property and say, okay, I'm going to give you like 10% of this back. It wasn't yours. It wasn't yours to take.
So in 2009, an even more generous peace deal, and they didn't accept it. And the bottom line is this. They don't want a state. They want, and they're invested emotionally, logistically, and militarily in the destruction of the state of Israel. Israel wants to live in peace. We don't want to rule another people.
Okay, but Fleur, all right, Fleur, but Fleur, let me ask you this. All right, hang on, please. Hang on, let me ask a question.
Arabs
no, Fleur, let me ask you a question.
That live side by side with Jews.
Yeah, Fleur, here's what I don't get about what you've just said. is that you talk about destruction and the threat of destruction. And I get that. Hamas is wedded to destroying Israel, as are Hezbollah.
It's in their charter.
Fine. But what is Israel doing right now in Gaza? You are destroying it.
She keeps saying it's in the charter. I just want to let everybody know that's the old charter. The woman right here, that's the old charter. They had a new charter, and they never reference what the new charter says. They consistently go back to the old charter. That is on purpose.
Destroying Gaza, and you're killing tens of thousands of people in the process. No, but you are destroying Gaza in the most extraordinarily brutal manner.
Okay.
And you're going after... You're going after... Let me finish, please. You're going after Hamas now in the very areas where you told the civilian population to go to. And in the process, you're killing a lot of innocent people. How can that be justified?
Hamas went into the humanitarian corridors because that's what they do. Exactly what...
Wait a minute. So everybody, I hope you're paying attention to the game that they play. And she said, well, they went into... Well, if you know, what you claim, if you know that Hamas went into a certain territory, then you've known where they've been all this time. If you know exactly how they've been moving, then you've known where they've been all this time, and you could have just went directly to them. I hope everybody is paying attention to what is being revealed. So either she's lying or she's telling the truth. And if she's telling, for her sake, I hope she's lying. Because if she's telling the truth, that tells you that they've always known where they were. They know where they were every time. And if they know where they are every time, why are they killing all these civilians but not taking out Hamas?
Angelica says that is their modus operandi. They don't build tunnels under schools.
Well, if you know that, why do you send people to these specific areas?
We send them areas thinking that those areas are going to be areas we're not going to attack, and then Hamas throws rockets at us and attack our soldiers. Look, ultimately, we want two things. We want the dismantlement of Hamas, who is an existential threat to the state of Israel, and we want our hostages back. If that...
Everybody is a threat to you, man. Everybody is a threat to you. But you're not a threat to anybody else. Anybody notice this? Anybody? Now, she says that they're in the tunnels. They always keep saying they're in the tunnels. Why aren't they going into those tunnels? If you know they're in the tunnels, why aren't you going there? Because that's not the goal. The goal is to destroy all of them. They knew a year and a half before October 7th, they saw the plans from Hamas to attack. They already saw that. That was reported by the New York Times. And they said, oh, we didn't think it was possible. Really? If they're so much of a threat as that woman says that they are, and the IDF says they are, and Netanyahu says they are, why would you not take that seriously? You see, they exposed themselves. We're going to go to another part here.
Because of the continued attacks, they go in once more. And because the PLO doesn't leave, they have to create this occupation, right? And then as soon as they removed the occupation in 2000 with Ehud Barak and Clinton, what happens is that Hezbollah advances to the border of Israel and starts attacking again. And then comes the UN resolution 1701 requiring not only that Hezbollah stays 10 kilometers back from the northern border, okay, but also that all of these militias in Lebanon have to disband, and there can only be a militarized Lebanese government. Israel abided. Who did not abide? Hezbollah. Then what did Hezbollah do for 18 years? For 18 years in the zone that they were not allowed to be, they started expanding their military capacities up to 200,000 munitions, and then finally, on October 8th, started attacking. And then when Israel responded with that pager attack, why did they do that? Why did they do that? Because the commanders, the leaders of Hezbollah had a plan to attack northern Galilee and do a second October 7th, kidnap hostages with a ground invasion. Now, you tell me, what should Israel do?
Okay.
Well, first of all, Israel shouldn't have been attacking Lebanon prior to that. Israel has been bullying Lebanon for quite some time. You took land. That's how you got a Hezbollah. That's how you got a Hamas. So stop it with the what should Israel do? The pagers that they did, they knew damn well that civilians were going to be killed, and most likely more civilians than Hezbollah.
Okay.
Well, escalation through escalation.
Okay, hang on. I'll go to Aaron.
It's always easier for them to blame Israel.
Let Aaron Mate respond to that. What Israel's supposed to do in that eventuality?
What Israel should do is, for the first time in its history, abandon its quest for regional domination and supremacy. Starting in 1947, just a brief tour through history. Yes, Israel accepted partition publicly. Palestinians didn't. It's not nice to welcome the partition of your land, which is being stolen by foreigners. But privately, Israeli leaders, including David Ben-Gurion, said, we won't accept partition. We'll define for ourselves what our borders are. And that's why they proceeded to expel hundreds of thousands of Palestinians, including into Lebanon, creating this crisis. They refused to address that. Instead of addressing their expulsion of Palestinians and theft of their land, they've stolen more. In 1967. In 1982, the reason Israel invades Lebanon is because the PLO is there, and the PLO at that time was joining the rest of the world in accepting a compromise of a Palestinian state. Google the Arab Peace Initiative. It's been renewed many times to Israel. Israel's been offered by all the Arab states and the PLO, with even Iran joining them and accepting this. Everybody recognizing Israel, everybody making peace in exchange for Israel ending its occupation of the West Bank and Gaza. That's a major compromise for Palestinians. Israel is so hell-bent on domination, occupation, and supremacy, it's refused even to accept a Palestinian compromise. When Hamas tried to join that after 2005, when Israel withdrew, Israel still put Gaza under a complete siege, prevented any basic goods from getting in, carried out routine massacres. Even when Hamas leaders, including Ismail Haniyeh, who Israel recently killed, said, we will accept a Palestinian state, Israel will not accept it because Israel wants to dominate that region. That's the fundamental problem here. And as it was previously said, as long as Israel insists on supremacy and occupation, people are going to resist it. People will resist it. It's true. Google the Arab Peace Initiative, 2002. Google it.
Camp David Accords, 2000. What happened with the Clinton parameters, 2001?
I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you what happened. You know what? I'll tell you what happened. I'll tell you what happened. The former Israeli foreign minister, Shlomo Ben-Ami, who was there at Camp David, do you want to know what he said?
Does this woman have like a contour? Is this a contouring issue, or does she have a really bad nose job? Because it looked like she got like she did like the plastic surgery to get like the Michael Jackson nose. That's kind of what it looked like.
Was there at Camp David. This is the foreign minister who made the Camp David offer. He said, if I were a Palestinian, I would have rejected Camp David as well. You know why? Because he recognizes that Israel insisted on keeping the major West Bank settlement blocks that make a Palestinian state impossible. That's the fundamental problem here. You don't see Palestinians as equal human beings, and you reserve the right to steal their land, and that's why you're interrupting me, because you can't handle the truth. That's the problem here. Stop being a supremacist.
Aaron said he went full what's the name of the movie with Jesus, that you can't handle the truth. You can't handle the truth. You want the truth. You can't handle the truth. A few good men.
Stop stealing land and you can have peace.
Piers, just go to 2024. Can I just say one quick thing?
Okay, let me bring in Wajahat, please.
Just one quick.
And we're going to go to one other part too as well. He said, stop stealing land and you can have peace. Yeah, that's a big part of it, right? Like they want peace, but they also want to just like take people out whenever they feel like it. You know, they want to kidnap Palestinian kids and not to mention what they've done to those children in the detention centers as well. Not let them have like a real trial or anything like that. It is absolutely disgusting. And he's right. Netanyahu has been on record for decades saying he does not want a Palestinian state, because if you get a Palestinian state, that means that Palestinian state also gets a military. That's part of the reason. This goes into the future. What is the best option moving forward?
Great. Then why didn't Arafat continue negotiating? And I'll tell you this, and I'll repeat it again, because the problem of this conflict is not that a Palestinian state doesn't exist. It's that a Jewish state exists, and they've never, ever ideologically accepted it. And why do I know? Because they keep telling me. Because they have charters. Because that's their constitution.
You have Google.
Why should they accept you when you stole their land? You kicked them off their land. Why should they accept you? Again, I said this before. Like, that's like asking a slave to accept their master. Like, why should they accept you?
And that's the educational system. And that's the media. Enough with Google. Don't you read anything else?
All right, listen.
Yeah, Google Arab League Peace Initiative.
Okay, listen.
Google Arab League. That's the Arab League offering Israel full normalization,
hang on, everyone.
Occupation. If you want to talk about Palestinian Mandelas, if you want to talk about Palestinian Mandelas, they exist. For example, in March 2018, thousands of Palestinian Mandelas marched peacefully in Gaza in the Great March of Return, calling for their basic rights. What did Israel do? It gunned them down with snipers, maiming people, paralyzing them. That's the Palestinian Mandela. They're people of Gaza who've been besieged for decades, wanting their basic rights.
Are you saying the Palestinian Mandelas in Hamas? Have you ever been to Gaza? Honestly, you people are talking like armchair.
First of all, those people that were protesting that he's referring to, I've seen the documentaries about this. Those people were not Hamas. Jesus Christ.
Yes, I have been to Gaza. Yes, I have.
Okay, sure.
I have been to Gaza, actually. And I've met the people there.
Lucky you're not a woman, then.
They've never been given the chance. Okay, can I talk now?
No, they've never been given the chance. 2005 never gave them that chance. Stop infantilizing the Palestinian leadership and the people.
I'm going to talk now. I'm going to speak now. You've had your time to speak your propaganda. I'll say it again. Israel has never accepted the fundamental premise that Palestinians have the right to self-determination. That's why it rejected multiple Arab League peace offers endorsed by Iran and Hamas, and members of Hamas, not all of them, but some of the leadership, including Ismail Haniyeh, calling for a Palestinian state in the West Bank and Gaza. That's a big compromise for Palestinians. That's just 22% of the land that you stole, which they're willing to accept. But Israel is so hell-bent on occupying and stealing land, it won't even accept the Palestinian surrender. You don't want a Palestinian Mandela. You want to keep subjugating Palestinians.
What are you talking about? You're living in your own planet where Islamic fundamentalism does not exist in your planet.
You're the fundamentalist who insists on stealing other people's land. You're the fundamentalist.
Okay, time out.
And that's when it kind of comes to a close there, just because everybody was interrupting and Piers was like, we got to get up out of this piece. But I will just say this, it's really sad that so many people believe that. It's really sad that so mmany people have been brainwashed to believe that they have done nothing wrong, that they've done nothing wrong to these people. It drives me mad and insane. And they feel, and to feel as though you've done nothing wrong because you have been taught that the land is supposed to belong to you. Even if you believe that part, how can you defend the abuse, the occupation, the oppression, the killing of the Arab people? How can you defend it? How can you defend the sterilization of the Ethiopian women against their will? How can you defend it? You can only defend that if you believe that you have a divine right, and if you prescribe yourself to the supremacy that Aaron was speaking of, that's the only way you can defend it. When you have that supremacy, when you believe that you are the supreme one and you are the only one that should be there because of it, that's how you do it. There's no other way. And I don't care what you were taught. There are a number of people that were raised to be Zionists that woke up. And I don't want to hear the whole, my parents taught me. Parents teach you a lot of things that you don't follow, okay? Parents teach you a lot of things that you don't go along with as you get older and you decide to do something different. So that whole excuse is, this is the way that I was raised. You were raised to do a lot of things. Some of you were raised not to drink underage. Some of you were raised not to have sex before marriage. Some of you were raised, not to, live with a man unless you were married or whatever. Some of you are raised to do certain things, but you did it any damn way. So stop it with this is the way that I was raised and this is what I was taught. Because when it was time for you to go against what you were taught, you had no problem doing that with other things. But this one thing you got to hold on to, because the reality is you want it to be that way. I can't stand it. I can't stand it. You want it to be that way. You want to have the region. You want to have the land. Just say that. And stop calling everybody Hamas and Hezbollah and everybody that's not like you.